Okay, so Jay has finished his grain, and once he's finished with his grain is when we will give him his hay. Because if we put his hay in first and then feed him his grain, he will just stand there and eat hay, and Chloe will gobble down all of his grain with his meds. So it's grain first with Jay, and once he's done, usually by the time I get done feeding everybody else their grain and checking water troughs, he's finished anyway with his grain, so it's not like you gotta stick around and wait for him, but he's a pretty fast eater. So then I give him his hay, because if you give him his hay first, he'll stop eating his grain and go eat the hay, and then Chloe gets his grain. And she is fat, as you can tell. So right now we're throwing hay down in Freedom's stall. It's this far stall, closest to the south exit of the barn, because we're on this side of the loft, and we'll have more bales thrown down, but we're only feeding Jay hay right now since the other horses are out on the grass 24/7. They're, we're not bringing them in at night to their paddocks when the weather's nice. And we do not feed hay out in the grass pasture because they just don't eat it. They trample it, poop on it, pee on it, and they just waste it. So they prefer to eat in the fall when the grass is getting really short, we feed hay out there, but right now they just don't eat it. So Jay gets a half bale of hay in his red feeder there. And that's good for him until evening time. Now, Friday morning before we leave, we will throw a whole bale in there since you're gonna be here Friday late, like around 10 or 11, I think you said, which is fine. The others, they should be totally fine. So Friday night, you can just make sure he still has hay. I'm sure maybe he probably still will have hay. You can still throw him a half bale of hay Friday night, because I'm sure Chloe will gobble up most of the hay too, but he won't be starving by the time you get here later on Friday, is why we'll throw a whole bale that morning for him. But usually every morning he gets a half bale, and we usually turn him out, but you don't have to worry about turning Jay out. He can just stay in his paddock until we get home, because he kind of needs some supervision when he's out on the grass, just to make sure, he's not consuming too much grass with his Cushing's and everything. So just to make things easier, he'll just stay here in his little paddock. Yes, I'm talking about you. He's like, bring me my hay. Okay, so he just gets a half bale hay in his red feeder, morning and night. And he's the only one that gets hay, and Chloe, of course, she really only needs a flake, but since she's Jay's buddy, she probably gets more than that, which is why she's so fat. But that's the only hay you have to worry about, since the others are out on the grass. So I cannot carry hay and record at the same time. So I will stop the video and start recording again when I'm checking Jay's trough. I'll show you where his trough is.